I'm joined here by National Master John MacArthur, and we're going to be talking about all the news from Vicon Say and all the other little tidbits we've decided that's fit enough for the
news.
Chess podcast. Yeah, essentially. So, John, how are you going today?
I'm doing great, Rogan. I love the New York Times paraphrasing of all the news that's fit to print.
Yeah.
As opposed to all the news that's fit to podcast.
Yeah, amen. Like democracy dies in darkness. And it's just keeping the night at bay, John. Without us, the stuff would happen.
Indeed, it has been a slow news week, though, for the most part. Aside from Tata Steel and the Challengers event keeping us busy, I didn't really follow much of the lower sections of the chess festival in Vicon. Besides the top two, only because Hans Niemann was in the Challenger section, and unfortunately, he only finished at +1, I think, 7 points out of 13 rounds, while Leon Luke Mendonca of India managed to win it with 9.5 points out of 13, which is an incredible score, honestly. He lost a couple of games. Nearly all of his games were decisive. It was like crazy. He had like 4 draws. And Daniel Darda of Belgium. And the player that I thought was going to win it, the French player, Marc-André Morizzi, those two players ended up in a tie for second with 9 points. But yeah, I was following it mainly because of Divya Deshmukh and Eline Roberts. Eline Roberts managed to lock down the other side of the table with 2 points, but she did have some nice stunning upsets in her encounters, having beaten Hans Niemann. Today was the day, though, that we had the 4-player tiebreak between Anish Giri, Gukesh, Abdusattorov, Norbek. I have to clarify my Abdusattorovs or my Nordebeks, and Wei Yi. Wei Yi won the tiebreak today for the championship section. Anish Giri had won last year, so I was actually quite hoping that he would do it. And in fact, it was between Gukesh and Giri in the first part of the tiebreak that it was decided to a great extent. But then Gukesh faltered against Wei Yi. It's crazy.
Yeah. For anybody wondering, Wei Yi is a 24-year-old grandmaster from China, which is, going to show that there's a lot of talent coming out of China at some point, and they, possibly a very big chess rival.
Yeah, when he was coming up, he was one of the youngest grandmasters in the world at age 13, and I think he is currently still the youngest player to cross 2,700 at age 15. So I actually had quite high hopes for him. I remember even printing out and using
cross the 2,700.
He crossed the 2,700 mark when he was 15 years old, which is a goal several other players have set for themselves as well. It was in that link that I sent just earlier. How accurate, of course, it is. If you find it on the internet, I could be wrong. As information that you might hear in a podcast without fact checking for yourself might actually, might go.
I've got the research department out back, just pumping stuff out.
That's right. Our fact checkers. So you have a whole team in the back room just feverishly going over everything that we say so we can publish a retraction later or podcast a retraction later.
Yeah. Coincidentally,
but I'm happy for
perfect.
Ju Wen-jun gained about 10 rating points in this tournament.
I mean, yes.
She gained almost as many as Jan Nepo lost.
Yes. It's going to be a very interesting candidate cycle with what's happened here. Ding has been shown to not be quite in the dominant fashion that you would expect a world champion to be. I mean, we've been very spoiled with Magnus, I think,
I think his trainer is Raven Stewart, I overheard this week say something to the effect that you don't really need to play that much to gain a lot of strength.
Yes. What I think John is trying to say here, and he's trying to segue into, is a Perpetual Chess podcast episode where a grandmaster, Raven, somebody, I forget his last name,
Raven Stewart.
Suggested that you don't need to play a hell of a lot of chess to gain massive amounts of rating, or at least he didn't need to. So he made the parallel that it wasn't needed, or at least he didn't need it. And I
and
think
his
John has
advice
a
on
lot
how
to
to
say on
improve.
this.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Raven Stewart since he was a very, very young fellow. He's a year younger than Grandmaster Mark Arnold, my protege. And basically, or maybe they're the same age, but he's a year younger in chess. As I looked back and I saw how much he had played in order to reach, a competent level of candidate master. Basically, he was playing at least 2 times a month, if not 3 times a month, in order to reach a 2000 level. And I ultimately did find the 5 tournaments that he played. I think in the podcast he mentioned that it was like 3 tournaments, but he mentioned there were 5 tournaments that he played in a 3.5-month period of time, maybe 4-month period of time. So he played 5 tournaments in roughly a 4-month period of time, where he shot from 2259 to 2400, 2398 / just over 2400. And when I look, though, I see that he is playing some chess relatively frequently in local blitz event, local club rapid events, and things like that. On the whole, since then, like, I don't think he could keep that pace up of only playing 4 or 5 tournaments. But this was around 2016, give or take. I'm trying to remember what the months exactly were. But in general, he also did clarify, much to his credit, that this probably won't work for everyone, that he felt he was an anomaly in that department. But in his case, he did not feel that you needed to play. You could study all the time, much to the degree that you might even get sick of chess if you're studying all the time and not playing. But
Yes.
fortunately for us, post-COVID, we have a plethora of online events to play. So you don't really need to leave the house to play enough to enhance your preparation. Now, I've always been impressed with Raven Stewart's work ethic. I don't know that I would equate it with Hans Niemann. Hans Niemann, who has reportedly studied from 8 to 12 hours a day on various occasions, or at least on a very serious basis with certain numbers of breaks, I'm certain. But honestly, if you can study that much,
You'll go
more
places.
power to you.
Yeah.
You're going someplace.
But I will suggest, however, that it was a very weird thing to say. Both say that I'm an anomaly, I'm an anomaly, and I study a shit ton of time. He basically took a year off and spent his time in Portugal in a Portuguese hostel of some kind. No idea, about that too much. But he spent a
In Brazil,
year
I think,
basically studying for
or
8 hours a
somewhere.
day. Yeah. And so he's basically saying, I'm an anomaly. I study a massive amount. But then he almost suggests that you don't need to have that play a lot of chess, get to a high level, or gain significant amounts of rating, which is two very different things. Not everyone has the time to, triage playing for, probably the most efficient way of getting better with a very time costly and a very, very, I've honestly, it's almost degrading to your other parts of your life way of studying chess. And that brings
Right?
back, and then it goes to another point, is that is almost as ludicrous, is that he's clearly, like, in his younger years, according to all the sources we've managed to drag up here, that we've, like, through his FIDE, US chess, such things, he's played shit tons of tournaments. He used to play a lot. And there's this thing that I kind of like to call a chess fitness baseline. After you've played a ton of tournaments and at a reasonably competitive level at a younger age, it's a more viable option to be able to play less and study more. But if you haven't got that experience behind you, you've got no baseline to return to easily. So I mean,
Right, like your level of fitness, you can maintain your level of fitness without necessarily that level of competition if you really needed to. But
yeah.
he's talking about perhaps major FIDE tournaments, like the 5 major FIDE tournaments that included gains of 30 plus rating points per tournament. And the
Mm.
last one, I think, that he played, where he went from 2392 to 2398 in that cycle. I'm very impressed that he was able to have that spike, but I can only hope that Kramnik does not get a hold of those
Oh, yeah.
gains.
Yeah, Kramnik's gonna be posting,
You can't
"Here's
have a
some
spike like
statistics for
that.
you to look over, guys." I found this interest. little
God
interesting.
forbid.
Yeah, yeah.
God
I mean,
forbid.
God forbid. Yeah, amen. I mean, but
Yeah, many
truly,
years
I mean,
ago,
if he's only counting the major tournaments that he did play, right? And he's playing strong tournaments. Like it's a very it's a very mixed and weird message. If you're only counting the strong tournaments that are rated, then you're not counting the tournaments, right? Because if you play in some weekend blitz at the Manhattan Chess Club or something, you're going to be playing some very strong people, but it's not rated. But you'll still get experience from it. You'll still, you'll still be playing similar caliber people to who you would face in a rated tournament.
that's
So I
correct.
mean, so I
Gatakemsky actually
do think it's
performed
reasonably sad to say that.
in the every week in the Thursday Marshall Action tournaments. They play 4 rated games in an evening every Thursday evening at the Marshall Chess Club. And Gatakemsky actually qualified for the U.S. Championship by playing every Thursday. And he basically had 4 games of openings with which he could study from and have a basis for ensuing study for his game. And I remember, I think one of the events that Raven referred to was the Millionaire Chess Open, which was in October of 2016. And if you look at October of 2016, you'll see that Raven Stewart is on the Gatakemsky plan, playing in the Marshall Action every Thursday night or on Thursday nights, and the Marshall Friday Night Blitz tournaments and the Marshall weekend events. So interestingly enough, if you're playing in those local chess club events, but you only played 4 major tournament events, right?
Mm.
It's going to be a valuable part of your training.
Okay. For the too long didn't listen, we're basically saying that it was a little bit embellished because he did play a few more tournaments than he said he did. And it's a little bit of it's a very specific point he's bringing up in a very broad context. He's saying if you're me, you can do this. I mean, while putting it out there for like as a chess, like I don't know how much he lent into the chess improvement for people generally. I don't quite recall, but yeah, it
Right.
is. We're just saying it's a very it's a very interesting point to make. I mean, as it's just doesn't seem the evidence would suggest that it doesn't work for the normal person.
It does not. It does not. You really do have to put in the time. And I believe that it's about 2 parts study to 1 part play. So the ideal mix, from what I recall being recommended in some of the old texts and training for the most part, like you do have to be going to the gym a certain amount. If you're a professional football player, you can't not go to the gym. But at the same time, if you go to the gym all summer long and come out for the regular
Overtraining.
football season, I'm talking about American football. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about the real world football that most people are probably thinking that I'm referring to, but in American football, you'll come out looking like you're playing like the Jets. Unfortunately, if you try not to play for a long period of time, they run scrimmages all the time. One of my favorite shows most recently that I finished, Ted Lasso on Apple Plus. Basically, it has a tremendous amount of motivation, messages, and hard work, and being able to deal with adversity and being set back and so forth, and being
Mm.
able to work on defense as well as offense, in equal proportion. And overall, there's a reason why Ted Lasso won 2 Emmys for the most part. But on the
Mm.
whole, it's for those who don't know the story of Ted Lasso, I highly recommend it. It's a very amusing take on an American from Kansas or Kansas City. Could have been Kansas City, Missouri. I'm not sure if it was Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri, but he
Mm.
is transplanted to England to coach a Premier League soccer team
Mm.
in the hope that they would reach the Championship League. And that is the pretense of the show. Basically, a divorce takes over the football team from
And
her ex-husband and
and she's trying to
decides to wheel
sabotage it
him
in
in.
order to get him back. And
That's right.
she
Her
picks
initial
Ted Lasso because she doesn't think he can have what it takes to coach a completely different sport. And Ted comes over, and despite all the adversity, does quite all right. And happily ever after, very good show, very heartwarming, and yeah.
A lot of good messages.
Amen. Positivity all round. Great piece of cinema. Okay. So we have shown our distaste, I think, in enough different ways for the point that that a vast amount of study and no play, is probably a bad way of going about it. That you need
But I
is
would like,
somewhat equal proportions.
yeah, but I would like to commend Raven on his choice of chessable book material that he was also promoting, because it's also one of my favorite openings. Given that his name is Raven Stewart, what better opening manual would you recommend that he produce other than the Bird's opening, after all? And even though, as he also argues, the opening is relatively equal. Like, you're playing the first move and you achieve equality. And what could be the advantage in this but for the fact that you are just going to have to be the better player from that point on and forward during the game? You have to have a comfort level for the positions that arise. And I also played the Bird's opening on my track to becoming a master some 30 years ago, around 1989, 1990, 1991, and 1992. I remember I played the Birds opening rather frequently, and I would score very well against slightly higher rated opponents who were confounded by absolute equality so early on. When you have an opponent that doesn't play for an opening advantage and the cutting edge theory on the white side of the knight, or for things like that, which is what I did prior to deciding to become a master, I basically threw away all of the sharp theoretical memorizations that I had to worry about. And I just became a master by just playing chess. And I didn't have to worry about knowing what the latest wrinkles were and in the King's Indian or Benoni, or what the latest Sicilian developments were. And all I did was have to confound my opponent with a nice, easy, even chances opening. And most of the time, the higher rated players would go nuts. The players that were 200 or 300 points higher rated than me would usually do something drastic to try to change the position in their favor, which would break the rules and logic of the game. And I would achieve a winning opportunity. Whether or not I always took advantage of it, to mixed results. But often I had the hardest time when I was playing players that were close to my rating. When I played the Birds opening or any other opening that just resulted in equality against players my own rating, they were like, yeah, sure, we can agree to a draw. And they didn't try to do anything ridiculous, silly, or stupid. It was only the much higher rated players that didn't want to give up their rating points that would lose patience in a massive game of theoretical chicken. They would veer their car off to the side and end up in the bushes in an attempt to win at the last minute in later stages of the game, and it was quite good. In fact, I felt that way when I saw Max Warmerdam, I think, in round 12 against Ding Liren. One of Ding Liren's few wins was against Max Warmerdam, and it was a game that Ding Liren probably should have won strategically, made some sort of small slip up, and the game results in absolute equality in a rook and pawn ending that almost anybody might reasonably think that they should draw. And then, unfortunately, in the calmness of the position, Max Warmerdam made a mistake and ultimately did lose the game that was completely equal, which was really sad for him, since he worked so hard throughout most of that game to save it, succeeded, and then didn't because nobody shook hands.
Tis terrible or
Terrible.
good. I don't know how to react to that. Okay, yes. So we have other stories today, I believe, John. I mean, this was believe me, as the guest of the Perpetual Chess podcast aren't the only things that we look at when we're looking for news. So, John, is there any other news stories that you had interest in?
Well, I think earlier in the mix, you and I did a little bit of hashing out on to whether or not Lee Chess was better for this or chess.com was better for that.
Yes.
And I think that could be easily a regular part of our segment over whether Lead Chess is better than this or chess.com is better for that. Ultimately, I think, having tested the Swiss system, the reason that I love the Swiss system tournament, I haven't actually tested the Swiss system tournament. I'm looking forward to testing it through Rogan's generosity. I'm going to try to create some tournaments, some Swiss systems, and even run them in my stream from his club. And I'm hoping that I can learn more about how the chess.com system works, because I'm not going to in a whether it's a pro or a con in any sense. But I do know that I've I've become so comfortable with the mechanisms for creating tournaments regularly for the next 20 to 30 days or even longer in
Mm.
the course of minutes that it's a little bit a smidgen clunky to create tournaments because the information is not retained the same way when I go from tab to tab. In Lichess, because of the way it's designed, the web page caches all of my information so that I don't have to continually create new tournaments absolutely from scratch, but the chess.com did. But the other thing that I love about Swiss system tournaments over arenas, as I fell under 2200 again recently, rapid, I was trying to recall how that had happened for Rogan. It was basically because I'd walked away from my computer in a rapid arena that I'd set up in the classroom, and I've got players rated 1,000 or under and in the classroom. And I forgot that when I create the arena, it automatically placed me in the arena, and I lost a game without playing any moves while I was on the other side of the room helping people log in and stuff like that. And I lost 20 something rating points for not showing up in the arena environment. Now, in the Swiss environment, they treat it like a normal over the board game. Now, there are a
Mm.
lot of pros and cons to a Swiss system over the board game. One is that no one can tell you that it's your turn to move or that your game has started. Now, although you do get a little notification bell at the start of the game, regardless of which platform you use, whether or not you hear that, however low that sound might be, is entirely your fault. But the game is not rated even in over the board chess. So if I am paired with Raven Stewart in the World Open held in Arlington, Virginia, in whatever year, and I sleep in and I do not show up for the game and I lose, I don't lose any rating points. The game is unrateable if no one shows up for the game. If a move is not played, the game is unrateable and the rating
Okay.
points are not exchanged in real life.
Mm.
And the same thing is true in the Lichess Swiss. I don't necessarily know if this is the same on chess.com in a Swiss event because I've not played any chess.com Swiss events.
I
So
don't
I'm
think
going
they
to test
place
that
you in it
out one of
automatically. I
these
think you
mornings.
actually have to join yourself. You actually have to manually join it, so it won't automatically place you in it.
That's true. It doesn't place you in it either. But even if you are placed in it, if you are not present, if you don't make any moves, even
Mm.
if my game is paired and I'm sitting on the screen, because you do get paired in a Lichess Swiss and in any Swiss system, you will get paired whether you're in the playing area or not.
Yeah.
Unlike in an arena where if I drift off of the screen, it will not give me a game.
Right.
So therefore, if I'm not present, it actually won't pair me in the arena because they pair games as fast as humanly possible. But in a Swiss tournament, you get paired because you're in the tournament, regardless of
Okay.
whether you're present.
Right.
But you
I
only
I
play 9 games or 6 games. You don't play 40 games in a half an hour
mm.
because you can berserk.
I do believe our disagreement, though, John, did stem from fair play. I
Yes,
believe
fair play.
I believe I was saying something along the lines of Chesscom is better at catching cheaters or something along those lines. And I believe this. I used to stream on Lead Chess back in the dark days. And no, but I used to stream on Lead Chess and I did not get for the amount of people that I would play, I got hardly any refund from Lead
From
Chess to
people you
tell me
don't.
that that caught a cheater. Now, there's two things you could say from this. A, lead chess people are just so damn honest. There was nobody cheating against me, or they weren't catching them. I mean, now I am of the belief that they just weren't catching them because there are some times that you just you feel like you don't want to put it out there, you don't want to tell anyone, but you just feel like this somebody's not really being honest with me here. They're demolishing me and they're 400 points weaker. Am I playing that badly? Maybe not. But it's if but when on chess.com you'll get refunds. You every second day or so, you'll get a refund telling you that they've caught a cheater and here's your 9 rating points back, and they close
Hmm.
the account. And yeah, so I
Indeed.
mean so I mean I don't know what the contention is on there. I don't believe that lead chess people are just so damn honest and it's those chess.com people are just 700 times more cheaty. I mean, I don't believe it. I don't see the evidence for it. Like I would think that the
I know that
player
in your
pool is going to be
experience,
so similar.
yeah, I apologize. I know that in your experience, because you do play all comers in your stream, and I commend you for that because you're far braver than I am to face the general public like that. I have
Some more time, I
an
guess.
insistence on a series of games. Like if someone comes into the stream, I have channel point rewards that they have to actually invest their time earned channel point rewards into a best of 6 or a best of 10 or best of 24 match. Even I have what's called the World Championship match style, where it's first person to win 12 and a half points. And then literally, I've climbed back from the abyss many times, and I've almost always been, the successor. And sometimes the score has even been lopsided. One of my favorite students, Daniel Marrow, who is at least as strong as me to a certain extent now in rating as he's approaching master strength. I remember I played the 4 fellow. He comes out and I won like 12 and a half to 2 or something like that, 2.5. And I felt terrible for him, but he invested his channel points and he did very well against me if it was just a short match. Like if someone comes in and challenges you for one game, guess what they're aiming to do? They're trying to
Hit and run.
spoil the streamer's day, and it does succeed with you if you allow them to play just one game. I protect myself in other ways too, because I refer them to the actually structured tournaments that I run every day, the Swiss system tournaments. I'm going to play 6 to 9 separate individuals in the course of a Swiss tournament, unlike an arena, bridging it back to and from our previous conversation, because this is somewhat where I was headed from the Swiss system to the arena. In the arena, you will play people much more rapidly, but you will play them around your score group and around your strength in that arena. So you really won't play the other side of the table at all. I won't be playing the players that really want to play me at the bottom half of the arena. Or if I'm in a very, very, very strong arena, let's say I've gotten in several times with Magnus Carlsen, and even though I'm in the same arena with him, there's no doubt as to why I'm not playing a game against Magnus Carlsen. I'm not in the same score group or part of the cross table that he's in. But in a Swiss tournament, the top is paired against the bottom half. And if you can get off to a good start, you have a fairly good chance of being paired with everyone in a very small Swiss system event. And it's a nice, equitable way of doing it. And at the same time, because it's always rated, for example, I always play rated every streaming game I get a chance, and almost always within the context of my closed club environment. So I'm protected in a way because we see a new player come into our club environment. As Rogan noted earlier, I think the MasterChessDojo Elite Chess team has 5,000 relatively over the period of 3 years dedicated individuals, of which a couple dozen show up every day. And when somebody new floats in with a brand new account or anything like that, we're like, and everybody's got their eyes out because we're all looking out for each other. And whether or not I report it or somebody else reports it, yes, I have had the occasional cheater come through and someone has reported him and he's actually closed out his account before the tournament is over.
Yeah.
And all the points are refunded mid-tournament. It's pretty cool because I see the little notification that I get my refund. But when I play in other people's events, just to say, I played in the titled arena. I usually play in the titled arenas on Saturdays or in the Liga events for Phoebe Witt or Catherine.
Is it Bundesliga or what? Just
it's a Liga event, not unlike the football, the soccer football leagues. Basically, this afternoon, I think I joined whatever Liga for Phoebe Witt's team. And at the time I joined, we were in like 7th place. And I only had about 30 minutes to 40 minutes left in a 5-0 games. And I basically played, and we managed to finish in the top 3 so that we could get promoted to the next league up.
Oh, that's
so
good.
Our team got promoted, and I managed to assist get us from 7th place into 3rd place, which was really
really relegation cool. This season. That's good.
No relegation, exactly. Unfortunately, as a result, if you do finish in the bottom of your league, then you get relegated to the C or the D or the E leagues or whatever the case might be. I'm not sure how the structuring works,
Mm.
but I'm quite happy about that. But when I do play in these leagues, I do get refunds. I do get refunds, not just in the leagues, but also when I play in the hourly bullet and the hourly blitz. I get refunds periodically, and they're pretty rapid. I mean, I can just look back and see who did it and who did what when.
Who'd done it?
But in the closed environments like mine in the Master Chess Dojo, or if I play in Offerspiel, Magnus Carlsen's online chess team, everybody
Yeah.
pays for that membership. And therefore, everybody has a little bit of an invested, like literally everybody pays to play in the Offerspiel event. So
Mm.
therefore, I think in that event, I haven't
It
yet had
incentivizes
a single
honesty.
person. Yeah, plus Norwegians are ultimately super honest, as well as many Scandinavians. But because everybody is true to each other, I think the drawback to me, the reason why chess.com does have to give you so many refunds, is ultimately because you have so many people playing for free who don't value the chess.com membership versus the people that are willing to pay to get all the
Yeah.
extra features
It is worth
who
noting that
do value the chess.com membership.
It is
But at
worth
the same
noting that
time,
John and I do different things, like you said before. Like he plays arenas and structured events, and I just play anybody and everybody. Whereas he likes to play 24 game matches. I don't like playing the same person more than twice. So I mean
and that
it's
gives them a little bit of a license to hit and run. It's
mm,
not
well,
unlike why I don't like playing cash poker games either. And this almost happened to me in the only cash event on a Super Bowl Sunday that I attended. I got $500 in chips, basically in cash, because all of the tournaments had been canceled that weekend because of Super Bowl Sunday. I had arrived on late Saturday night, too late to enter the tournament. I got a good night's worth of sleep, and I'm going to enter the tournaments the next day. And I walk into the poker rooms, and I'm looking around. Even though the poker tournaments are advertised on the online app, they've all been canceled when I get there because they don't expect anyone to show up since it's Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm like,
right.
what? You're going to spend the entire day playing poker, basically, if you start at a noon event and you don't really finish until 5 or 6 p.m. And then you register for the 6 p.m. tournaments. But they had canceled them basically because they didn't expect anybody to show up. And I ended up roughing it down several $100s to guys that would hit you. They would
Yeah.
hit you. They would win your money. They would get up from the table and they would walk away. And basically, I would rather lose to Rogan and Chess Chopin and everybody else. I'd rather Rogan have my money as he knows me in a friendly home game.
And he'll take it
If I was
back.
going to play a cash, if I was going to play a cash game, I would
Yeah.
like to know the people and root for the people and be happy for the people. But for this guy or that guy that walks in, plays, a handful of hands, wins big, takes everybody with aces or kings, then gets up, goes back to the teller, and then goes off to hit another table, or something like that, or goes off to another game. I
Mm.
don't like cash games for that reason, so I only play poker tournaments. In poker tournaments, I spend $40, $70, less than $100 on average, and you get an entire day's worth of entertainment. You might get knocked out for your $100, but you usually last many hours playing poker. And I've chopped so many tournaments for first place. Usually the last 3 to 4 people all want to just chop the prizes. I've chopped so many poker tournaments that I cross my fingers. Thankfully, I'm still ahead in my local casino. I'm a little bit behind on the Colossus at the World Series of Poker, unfortunately. That one, when you're in a field with 14,000 people, has continued to elude me. But but
Yeah.
on average, it's the same thing in Lee chess and in chess. Basically, if you play 1 or 2 games with somebody, they hit the jackpot, they grab your rating,
Yeah.
and, and you don't get another shot at them.
It has shown in our results quite a lot. John and I have an extensive history. When I play John in one game, I can usually sometimes just cheese him somehow and, get a draw, get a win. And then if I play him 10 times in a row, he tends to he gives me a well-deserved hiding. And so so one-off events truly, they usually do
Put you at
give
risk.
different results.
Yeah, and they put you at risk for the most part. And when I'm visiting other chess.com streamers, some of my favorites, whether it's Alexander Chess or Alexander Semikanova or Jesse February or Lily Koritzi or even Ben Feingold, they're always usually running unrated tournaments in their streams. And then you end up, fortunately, you don't feel slighted, obviously, when you get pounded by a 900 who wins the tournament, right? Like the streamer's like,
Yeah.
you're playing exceptionally strong today.
You're
However,
either
because it's
sandbagging and
unrated,
breaking that terms of service, or you're cheating and breaking that terms of service. That's
but
that's
because
that's
the game isn't
generally what
rated,
happens, right?
who cares? Because
Yeah.
the
Well.
game
Yeah.
isn't rated, who cares?
Wow.
There was a time when I felt that every rated game was always checked. In fact, if I look at today's games as a master, as a titled player, all of my games are automatically run through. All of my games are automatically run through the computation, the analysis section, whereas the average player has to request game analysis after each and every game, and you're limited to about 30 game analysis requests, depending on, how much you do it. So I've noticed that when I do get the complimentary, every game I play is automatically analyzed. It's really lovely. And and that's how they form puzzles out of your games as well, because every game of a titled player automatically run through the analysis. The machine's algorithm pulls all the puzzles and exercises out of your games as well at the same time. As far as whether or not Lichess, I don't believe that cheating is as prevalent on Lichess for two reasons. One is that I think that they love taking the hide out of those members that are paying, all these free people, basically. And because nobody pays for a membership on Lichess to get all the features that are nearly as inclusive, with the exception of the instruction on chess.com.
Oh, there's a few other bits. Be generous.
Well, I know that the instruction on chess.com and the blogs and the stuff like that are almost all getting close to the same, but the instruction by, let's say, getting a note from Gregory Serper on the latest instruction or getting a Ben Feingold instructional is priceless when you have a membership to chess.com. But honestly, I don't take advantage of it, even when I was a paying member prior to the Hans Niemann affair. But since then, I let the membership lapse in the middle of the prior to the lawsuit, and I just said, you know what, I'm on the you can't just go around accusing everybody of cheating side, and I let my membership lapse. And I haven't missed the $99 a year, which I think is now $130 a year or something like that. They raised the
It's over
$99.
100. It's around 120, I think, or at
Yeah,
least.
119 maybe, or 120. They try to say 119.99 probably, or 129.99. I don't know, for a diamond, platinum, whatever. But I haven't looked into it honestly, because I'm quite happy just playing in my own community events and not worrying about it. But I do promise in the near future, and certainly before summer hits, that I will have enough experience, thanks to Rogan, and organizing tournaments and using his team on chess.com for a short period of time, that I'll become more comfortable with it and master it.
The Chesscom doesn't seem to mind when I bitch and moan about Chesscom. So, whether you be generous and say they don't care because they don't know, but it's I disagree with a lot of the stuff they do, but generally, I say, they're too big not to make mistakes. Something bad's gonna, they're gonna knock over a China teapot at some point. And you just got to
Indeed.
call it out when they knock over the China teapot, and
It's easy
I,
to
I,
bring
I
down
I
the,
respect that opinion there, John. I do.
yeah.
So yeah, so things we're planning on doing on the podcast at some point, while we've kind of brought that to we've put both our opinions out there. There's no way to really get the truth. Yeah, it's we'll figure this out another day perhaps. But what we're thinking about doing on this podcast here is having John, reminisce and talk to some of his older chess colleagues, and ask him some questions about their chess life. Because as we know, John is incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly friendly with quite a lot of the chess community. And so we're thinking of having John do an interview series, because we need some of that Ben Johnson money. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Well, I have talked to John Fedorowicz about it. I know that he will be up for it, but I will have to go to his local pub to do it. And
Okay.
I'm not sure about the quality of the broadcast if I do that, but needless to say,
Yeah.
if the beer's on me, I know that
He'll-
the interview will happen. Or at the next chess tournament, which is coming up, actually. I have to actually gear up for Saratoga. That could be an excellent opportunity to get some interviews. And
I mean,
also, if anyone out there, if any title players out there wish to promote their wares, not unlike Raven Stewart's Birds opening, he got on there and promoted something that I had overlooked, regardless of how well marketed it is, Ravens Birds course.
yeah,
I thought there are a lot of people that may or may not want to get in touch with Rogan or myself and let us know that they have a story to tell. That could
yeah.
also work.
No, absolutely.
Certainly,
Feel
Andrus
free to let us
Toth
know.
is one of my favorites, and I think Rogan is much closer to him at this point than I am. I'm happy when he stops by my stream and gives me that random raid and stuff like that. And Alexandra Semikanova, I actually thought about because I learned a lot more about her history. And she should also not be overlooked. Her mother is actually a trainer and has had a chess school since before she was born. And she comes from a very serious chess background. There are quite a few that we could do. In fact, it was Jesse February's birthday today. So I actually thought about her as well earlier in the day.
Come on, John. We're talking about titled masters here. Come on. These
I'm
women
talking about
IMs.
personable people as
I'm
well. I
kidding.
like to
I'm
hear from
kidding.
the common person's plight toward becoming a better player.
True,
In
true.
fact, my most recent conversation with another student of the game, some very strong player, they mentioned that they were setting aside the 20 minutes per position to write down their analysis and all of that. And I mentioned that it's been commonly understood in the past that if you look at a position for longer than 5 minutes, you're actually going to sometimes talk yourself out of certain variations as well as you could talk yourself through them. And in today's time control format with rapid chess and sudden death time controls, you just don't have 20 minutes often to spend on one position in the course of a game. So it's much better to limit yourself to 5 minutes, as proclaimed in John Nunn's Secrets of Practical Chess or Grandmaster Chess Secrets, one of those two books. He mentions that you should analyze a position for 5 minutes to the best of your ability
Yeah,
and then look at the solution in order to eliminate blind spots. So that way you will express yourself along the calculation trail
yeah,
rather than analyzing something for 20 minutes of your time. You're going to express yourself 4 times faster by looking at the solution and
right.
opening your eyes to a new concept that you might not have gotten whether you spent the 20 minutes or not.
It's the
Or
sort
maybe it
of,
was a concept that you knew but had blinded yourself on.
or it's the sort of, if I'm not going to get it, I'm not going to get it. So I might as well see it so I can remember it, sort of deal.
And try to come to understand it. Yes.
Right.
Why am I overlooking this? And I got that mainly in a second lesson of sorts from Garry Kasparov himself, as he wrote once about his affliction over the C3 square. I think in one of his early matches with Anatoly Karpov, he had miscalculated in two separate games in the area involving C3, the C3 square, and that lower queenside quadrant. And
Mm.
every time a series of critical events happened in that area of the board afterward, he took 3 times longer to reconvince himself that everything that he saw was true because he thought that was literally a blind spot on the board for him that he actually had to reassure himself. I mean, he actually gave himself a neurosis by miscalculating in that area of the board in two separate games or more, and therefore he didn't trust himself for a great period of time afterwards, every time something came up and when he was calculating. So if you think for 20 minutes in one position, my favorite story was Damien Doughton at the Old Manhattan Chess Club and Carnegie Hall. He actually was studying a position for 3 days. I think I came in on the third afternoon and I saw this position on the board as he's writing down analysis and all of this. And I said, I can't take it anymore. And I told him that the one black pawn from the diagram should be a white pawn. His eyes were opened, and he looked at the solution, and he saw the pawn move for the wrong side, and he realized what was wrong. And I felt for him greatly because he
Oh,
had spent 2.5 days on this puzzle, this exercise, 2.5
wow.
days of his life.
I mean,
Maybe not
truly,
full day, but every afternoon after work, he would usually come in and set up in the Manhattan Chess Club. This was when it was in Carnegie Hall in the Wheel Recital Hall, and he
yeah.
was in the back analysis room working on this thing. And I felt terrible for him, but he had too much pride to look up the solution. He wanted to get it himself. He didn't want anyone to tell him. And the only way that he would let me look at the book is if I swore that I would not tell him the solution. He wouldn't let me have the book for the first couple of times because I looked at it and couldn't solve it. That was it for me. I moved on. On the third day,
Jesus rose.
the position was written.
Okay. Cool. Have we any last thoughts to go over? Any last bits of news to, and if anybody wants to contact us and just Master Chess Dojo into any of the places that we're at, Lee Chess, chess.com, maybe, definitely on
Also,
Twitch. You can
yeah,
find me on
also by the
YouTube if you
same names on
really want.
Twitter,
Yeah, and
direct
he's on
messaging.
also on Twitter. Apparently, so am I. I don't know what I'm doing there, but you know, I've managed to
I
find
faintly
myself.
thought you were on Instagram as well, but
I was
many
on
people message
Instagram.
me through Instagram. Many people message me through Instagram, and I don't really check my Twitter messages as much. But
Mm.
certainly that is one way to get a hold of us,
Yeah, if you
if not
disagree
through
with
our.
me, you can just go right ahead, and I'm sure we'll talk civilly and, have a
There's always that
pleasant
little block
discussion.
button right above their username.
Yeah. Just tell me who you are, why you disagree with me, and
I'll send over
I'll
6 big
civilly
guys
use the
to
block
square
button.
you away.
Until Elon Musk decides that blocks are just not the thing. Okay, so yes, do check out John. He's criminally underappreciated as a chess teacher. I mean, mainly because he's on Lee Chess, but that's a different story. Yeah. Any last minute words
Rogan,
of
thank
wisdom,
you.
John?
I am looking forward to the candidates tournament in April. I think I'm going to be away every weekend of the month of April for National Scholastics, and I'll be in Toronto on the only weekend that I'm not away for student events. So, which might be the last weekend of April. I'm hoping to go up there for the concluding portion of the candidate event in Toronto, and we will have a preview of the candidates event coming up. I'm pretty certain. I would like to look at the head-to-heads between the various participants as well from the Tata Steel event. I noticed there were a few head-to-heads of participants. Fabiano Caruana sat out of Tata Steel, as well as Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. So we miss them dearly in these clashes. But Prague and Vidit, and of course the ultimate prize at the end of the rainbow, whoever Ding Liren deems fit to become world champion, as he's going to play them and endow them with a crown.
Yeah. I mean, the only person I think that Ding could probably edge over that's strong enough to win the candidates is maybe Nepo again. And that's
Nepo
and
is,
that's and
yeah.
that's assuming that Nepo hasn't grown a whole lot of hope and a whole lot of new mental strength.
Nepo has definitely confirmed his bridesmaid privileges to the crown.
Yeah,
He's always managed to lock down that second place in the 2-horse race. So I think he could do it again if he were really put to the test. But all of these challengers, I think, know that whoever wins the candidate has an incredibly good chance at becoming world champion.
yes. I
Although I
mean,
wouldn't doubt Ding's match mentality now that he's got some experience with match play.
yeah. But there's
It
good
won't be
world
easy.
championship experience, bad world championship experience. But who do you think? Fabi? Do you think Fabi's going to do it? How do you think Hikaru's going to feel? How do you think Hikaru's going to do?
Well, obviously, I want to root for the American. Hikaru has excellent chances. I have not seen him playing that much. He is on the Raven Stewart preparation for the World Championship trail by not playing in very many of the things other than playing viewers online. I know he's studying up a storm. I know he's got that fitness base of being a healthy, strong player that it probably won't affect him that much, and that's why he came out of COVID so strong. But Fabiano Caruana is certainly the hands-down favorite with the way he's been playing. But at the same time, past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I also feel that the hungrier challenger behind him Vidit is no spring chicken. Vidit may be in my rooting for the older player crowd. Besides Fabiano and Hikaru, Vidit fits the older player crowd that I'm rooting for. I'm crossing my fingers that Prague and Gukesh, I believe, is also in it.
Yep.
Have an opportunity, but I don't see them actually succeeding just yet. Not in this crowd.
Yeah.
Watch me
I
eat my
mean,
words.
yeah, I mean, some of them are up and comers. So up and comers do have a problem where they have to beat the nows. They have to beat the people who are very dominant now and not just got unlimited potential.
Ghost of Christmas Present is strong.
Yes, yeah.
Their Christmas future might be very nice, but
Yeah.
right now they have to get the gift that is the present
Yeah.
cracked open first.
That is very true. So Fabi's your pick, I assume. I mean, we've been through this, haven't we?
Fabiano, based on his recent performances, is the standard pick. But if I chose a sentimental favorite, I would have to go with Vidit.
Okay.
As the older one of the Indian crowd. I feel for him. I can actually see him and his hard work just now paying off as a slightly older player amongst the Indian contingent. And we haven't gotten in this week that Anand has managed to pass his Indian rivals to be the head number one player in India.
Oh, I know. Yeah, he's
How
very
that
good player.
happened without him playing a single game, I don't know. But now there are no Indian players ahead of him on the rating list.
Oh, I know. He's truly amazing how he can just stay still. And in a week we're going to get some more articles that somebody's passed him,
and then he'll be back ahead of them.
And the cycle continues. Okay.
The cycle continues.
I do believe it is time to say adieu, goodbye, and thank you for listening. I mean, yeah. If you have any stories that you want us to cover, then do contact us. But otherwise, go away. No.
That's right. And I'll even take all suggestions from Arsenal fan Richie.
Okay, that's a little much. Okay.
No, he's one of my favorite inspirations. So he comes in and I say, and he loves the podcast. So I say, he's actually probably a good contingent for our listener base as well. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've got a picture of him in our target audience. There we go. It's just him.
Yes, indeed. And an Arsenal fan logo right up there.
Yeah, amen. That's without a doubt. So I believe this was goodbye.
Good night, Rogan.
Good night.